Hello, everybody. So this is Ali. Ali is a student in our current program, and he's going to UBC. Are you going sciences, right?
Sciences, yeah.
Going into sciences at UBC, which for those of you that don't know is a very competitive program to get into. But along with that, he has also won $8,000 in scholarships, which is pretty incredible. And what's really interesting is you're actually still going through that process. You're still in the middle of it
Mm-hmm.
and still completing applications, but you have more than your tuition paid for your first year, which is
Yeah.
amazing. So Ali, thanks for joining me and for sharing your wisdom with everybody else. So just to start, take us back to I guess the beginning of the school year for you. So let's go back to September. What did the process of like university applications and scholarships look like for you at that point?
Well, for universities, I was definitely like fixated on UBC. That was the one school I wanted to get into, and I also wanted to get the early admission and like I not have to worry about waiting until like let's say like April or May, so like around now to get my acceptance letter. So I just wanted to like get into UBC, get in early, and then try to get a scholarship from them as like, and I just wanted to try for that as much as I could. And for external scholarships, I was kind of more on like the back of my mind. Like I knew I wanted to also apply for like let's say some of the major ones, but like I didn't really think about giving it like too much focus. And then I just thought about more like focusing on my grades and more on like my extracurriculars.
Right, right. Okay. And so obviously now you're here and you got into UBC, which was your
Mhm.
goal all along, and you're like super motivated to do that. And then on top of that, like I said, you've won $8,000. And so what has that process been like for you so far? And obviously, like I said, you're still actually going through it and
Yes.
you're still in the middle of it. But like,
Mhm.
what has that process been like for you? Like, what are the key things that you have done in order to have that success?
Well, for applying for UBC and especially for their scholarships, one thing I did was start early. I wanted to try to think of ideas that I can write about and then have more than one idea for their topics because their essays are pretty broad. Like they give you like there's a lot of different things you can write about. So I thought about having like two or three different things for each topic and then kind of like formulating my ideas and then kind of coming up with different ways that I can introduce myself and then try to include as much as I could with it.
Yes. And how important was it that because you did start early, right? And that,
Mhm.
to me, that was really important that our students do it. They're not doing it at like 11:59 the night that it's due. And so how important was it for you to start early? And I also like what you said about having 2 to 3 different ideas per essay because they are so broad.
Mhm.
And so how important was it to start early? And then like how did you go about like narrowing your focus on what you were going to talk about in each essay?
Well, what I found really important about starting early was that if I didn't really like the topic that I was writing about, or I didn't feel that it would like resonate with the admissions people as much, I could always just restart and move on to my next one, which is really important.
Mhm.
And also for just, sorry, what was the other question?
The other question was, how did you narrow your focus
Uh,
because you said you had 2 to 3 different ideas for
yeah,
each
so
paragraph, and how
I
important was that to narrow your focus?
Yeah. So also I found researching like UBC's admissions and like what they really look for, their criteria are really important. And
Mhm.
that's where kind of the admissions algorithm module kind of helped in and came in to like help me narrow down too because there's like a certain criteria that they look for. They don't just want you to talk about anything. They look for specifics. So that really helped me figure out that which one of these like two essays includes more of that, which one would get like a higher score on their rubric. So I really kind of looked at it that way. And
Awesome.
also to kind of make it as creative and unique as possible because what I really thought of it as is kind of like them going through probably tens of thousands of essays like for all of them and so they probably only read through it once maybe twice and they'll either put it in like a certain pile so I just want to try to make it stand out as much as possible so I incorporated things that I usually don't so for example I added in humor in some of my essays
Hmm.
which kind of I hope that like it helped me stand out with it.
Yes. Okay, let's talk about that for a second because that's something that you did really well. Like I remember going back and forth on your application and like you executed that so well because it's not like and we often say this to students, you can't just throw in, humor has to be done carefully, right? It has to be like carefully constructed into the application. You can't just like throw around jokes all over the place. And that's what you did, is you were very thoughtful with how am I going to incorporate this into the essay in a way that's going to help differentiate me from all the other applicants.
Yeah.
And taking that like creative approach is really important, because it's like you said, they're reading tens of thousands of applications, and only a very small percentage of that is going to get into whatever program it is, and then an even smaller percentage is going to win anything in a scholarship. And so being creative and taking a creative approach to the application, I think is very, very important. And I think that's something that you consistently, well, you've done it on all the applications that you've completed, but you consistently did that in each paragraph that you completed
Yes.
as well. And so do you think that that's probably one of the most important things that you did that supported your
But
application?
I feel like that helped out definitely because as we said, I want to stand out and I want to differentiate myself. So like that's what really that they're looking for.
Yeah.
And then I also tried incorporating it also in like some of my external scholarships too.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, awesome. And then you touched on this briefly because I think you mentioned the modules, but
Mhm.
how has the program, or how's the structure of the program helped you so far with your university applications and your scholarship applications as well?
Well, I feel like it definitely helped structure my writing more, using STAR for
Star
it.
structure.
Uh,
We cram that down your guys' throats. Star
almost
structure.
every webinar, but like I feel like that really helped because that way I know what like they're looking for when they're kind of going through my essays and then kind of going through my admissions. So I feel like that was one of the most important things, was structuring my writing and then getting it down, taking out all like the extra stuff that wasn't really necessary, and then kind of just taking out the word count and then really narrowing it down to the important stuff and then what they're actually looking for.
Awesome. Yeah, star structure is really big,
Hmm.
and removing the fluff. Because, like I said to Ali right before we got on this call, that his writing was very strong. So it was actually like narrowing your focus and taking out some of the fluff. But you are like already a very good writer, right? So you make it very easy for us. But awesome. Okay, and then I guess my other question is just in terms of your involvement, because the other thing that I wanted to mention is like, although you're in your grade 12 year, like you were still looking throughout the year to create new initiatives and to like
Hmm.
deepen your involvement and strengthen your involvement. And I think a big part of that is because you see that scholarships are a 5-year game, right? And
Yeah.
it's great. Like you're like, okay, I got $8,000. Like I won my entire tuition, but I think you see that it's a long-term game that you're playing. And so, what has like motivated you to continue to like look for new opportunities for involvement?
Well, for involvement, you definitely can't have enough of it. Like, and also I go to a very competitive school, so then I see like my peers doing this and that. So I'm just kind of like trying to it's really competitive, and then you're just trying to compete and then go on the same level with them. And then also for like it being a 5-year game for scholarships, I see it as if I start doing something in, let's say, like grade 11, and then I work on it for like more than a year, that looks better than kind of like maybe starting something in like grade 12 and doing it for a few months and then mentioning that. So then they really look for you being involved for a long time and then really building relationships with the organization you're involved with.
Totally. It is. You're right. It's because scholarship committees and any university admissions team as well is going to notice like, were you involved in this for the sole
Mhm.
purpose of getting into the school or to
Yeah.
win the scholarship, or was this actually something that you were out to do in order to actually have an impact on other people and
Mhm.
something that occurred organically versus you just
Yeah.
doing it
You
for
really want to look for initiatives that you're passionate about because
Mhm.
there's there's like a bunch of other people who may have like the same level of like initiatives and then extracurriculars as you, but really what they look for is that how passionate about it are you, and then like how much of it is like part of your daily life, and then like how much you love that thing. So some of the initiatives that I kind of got into were like politics, which I
Mhm.
really enjoyed. So then I started volunteering at my local constituency office, and
Mhm.
then I also started. I also joined my youth councils. That really showed that like I wasn't solely interested in it. for like just scholarships. Like I was going out and then I was seeking these opportunities.
Yeah, totally. And like, how critical is it really that you are passionate about it? Because
Mhm.
think about, and this was so natural for you, but think about trying to write about an initiative that you don't actually care about and
Yeah.
trying to like clearly articulate your contribution in an essay if it's something that you
Mhm.
don't actually care about, right?
Mhm.
So it's like critical that you are passionate about it so that you can clearly like reflect on the experience that you had, the actions that you took,
Yeah.
the result, like all that stuff, right?
Mhm.
Because if you're not, then it makes it really challenging
Mhm.
for you to talk about it. And scholarship committees and university admissions teams can usually detect that as well. So
Yeah.
that's huge. That's like a
So you
really
don't want to be like too like too spread out in your initiatives, because like one thing I also tried to do was try to have like two or three different areas where like I kind of focused on in my extracurriculars. So that way it also helps build your identity. So that way you can say that, oh, I'm a person that is passionate about like three different things instead of saying maybe like five or six different things, which is like you could have more things to talk about, but it's really just like maybe one or two more points instead of having a lot of points to talk about for just two or different things.
yeah, yeah, that's huge because you need to be able to go into the detail of and this
Mhm.
is like I think something that students really struggle with is like people have this natural tendency or students have this natural tendency to want to just like list out everything that they've done,
Yeah.
but it's like
Mhm.
what was your actual contribution? Like we need to be able to
Mhm.
pull that out of the essay, and that's something that you did like a very very good job of. Awesome. Okay, this was like so much advice. So you already you've already given a ton of advice to students, but if you let's just say one thing, if there was like one piece of advice that you think is the most critical for students that are maybe just starting the scholarship process and the university application process, what would your one biggest piece of advice be?
Well, for the university process, especially UBC, I can say to start as early as possible, because
Mhm.
now I would consider UBC more of a like 2 year process instead of just a few months, especially with the grades and stuff too. Now they changed it so that they look at your grade 11 and grade 12
Mhm.
year grades. So then you really want to just start as early as possible, have that goal in your mind, and then try to work towards it in any way possible.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the most important thing is starting. Yeah, starting like I said, don't do the 11:59 p.m.
Mhm.
the night before it's due. Don't take that approach. Really, like you need to plan because you could walk into grade 12 and you could have you weren't really focused on your grades or you weren't building any initiatives and it looks very last minute. And so
Yeah.
having that extra year or that extra 2 years is super important to really bring the whole application together and to have like a holistic approach to it, right? And make
Mhm.
sure that you're actually taking care of everything that needs to be taken care of. Awesome. Okay, this was so much advice for
Mhm.
students. This was awesome. I really appreciate you sharing
Yeah, no
with
worries.
with us. This is going to be super helpful for students, but also we're super proud of you as well because what you've done is very hard to do. It's
Mhm.
very challenging, and so you're really like the representation of like what it looks like to get into a very competitive program, but then also get your entire tuition paid for your first year, and you're still in the middle of it, which is like the
Yeah.
hard. But yeah, so thank you so much, Ali, for sharing, and thanks for
Mhm.
coming on today.
Yeah, no worries. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.